back to Sledgehammer Horror, guys. I am Ken Sledge, and let's talk horror. Today, I am so pleased to have the director of the upcoming My Special Boy here with us today. I have James Grimm. James, how you doing, man?
Doing good, doing good. My back hurts, but I'm hanging in there.
Dude, I love all the stuff you have, man. Like, I'm so jealous and envious right now just looking at all the stuff in the background.
Thank you, thank you. Not all of it is painted by me, but there is a majority of back there that's painted by me. There's like that Roy piece and the Freddy piece, all painted by me. Some Michael Myers stuff that's painted by me, and some stuff from other artists. I love to paint, but I also like to collect in general. So it's pretty cool.
Well, for you guys to see more of his collection, make sure you're following his social media links. I have those down here in the description. I was lucky enough to see the Freddy piece right when it was done. I got to see that on social media, and that's legit. Obviously, love me some Fred, man.
I almost wore the same shirt today.
What's that?
I almost wore the same shirt today.
Oh, that would have been so awesome.
That would have been
awesome. So when it comes to My Special Boy, what can you tell us about the upcoming project?
Sure, yeah. So, just fixing my audio. So we are bringing back Sackhead Jason. We are going back to the 80s. Our story takes place in 1984. I don't know if we've really put a specific date out there for people to know, but yeah, ours takes place in 84, 5 years after the events of the first film, and we are going to see some Sackhead Jason, which is something we don't see very often, and then we're going to give you guys a little bit of the hockey mask Jason as well, which is going to be cool, and we have some a lot of surprises in store for all of you. It's going to be nuts, but yeah, we're going back to a slasher kind of film. We want a slasher vibe, an 80s vibe, that's going to really bring the spirit of Camp Crystal Lake and the story of Jason, and we're going to do it a little differently than what you see nowadays. A lot of it's ghost Jason or zombie Jason, and we want to just kind of make him more of a man. We want to go back to the roots and kind of just it's a man who's stalking, get off my land, and it's going to be pretty nuts.
That's awesome. And Jason obviously is a huge influence on anybody that's into horror as much as we are, especially one of the first Sledgehammer horror things I ever made was the cut off hockey mask. I mean, It's just like, that's something that I'm a huge fan of the Friday the 13th franchise. And I'm so excited to see what you guys are going to do with this, because something I've made also very, very clear through all the episodes I've done is I am a bigger fan of the fan-made films than I am the Hollywood films at this point, because with the Hollywood films, they're in it more for the money, where you guys are in it for your love of the franchise. So everything from Vengeance to, Never Hike Alone, Never Hike in the Woods, Roseblood coming out, My Special Boy. These are things, Charles, the Child's Play fan film coming out. These are things that I get excited about, because you guys are doing it for your absolute love and admiration of the franchise. So you're not going to do us wrong because you're trying to get money. You're going to make the best possible film you can out of your love for the franchise. So on behalf of all the fans out here, thank you guys for what you do. We appreciate it. And I'm so happy to see this chapter of Friday the 13th, man.
Well, it's great to hear. It's great to hear. Yeah, I love how there's like this surgence of fan films, because like Friday the 13th, they're in that they're stuck in court right now. They can't make films. So you got people like Vincent DeSanti doing the Never Hike series. And then you got James Sweet with Jason Rising. And then you have Peter Anthony doing Roseblood. And then I think he's a part of Vengeance 2 coming out. And then you have Cody Falk with Voorhees. So you have all these people who are very passionate about these films, and they care about it, and they tell different stories. None of them are the same. None of them are alike. And I love that, because I love different stories and different tales and different continuations of parts of the franchise.
And I'm with you. That's what I like, because I grew up with these movies. It's something I grew up with. I remember going to see a couple of these in the cinema. That's how much these movies mean to me. So to see Vengeance continue the Jarvis storyline, and Roseblood is going to continue the Tina storyline, and you guys are going with the Sackhead Jason. I love the fact that we can go in all these different directions, but still end up at the same destination of a badass fan film. So any information I get on that, I will make sure to share with every single one of you. In the meantime, make sure you're following these guys. Again, social media is in the links. That way you can get everything too. It's something I'm very, very happy to be a part of it. I was able to buy a couple really awesome perks through the Indiegogo so I could become a part of this. So I'm so happy that I could do that. And I'm genuinely very excited to see how this turns out.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I think that like 10, 15 minutes in, people are going to be like, oh, this is what kind of film we're getting. All right. I'm on board. Yeah, I can't spoil anything, but I do just talking about it. I get so excited. Like I get kind of like I got geek out a little bit, because like I know the script. It's a big script. It's a because this is going to be a feature length film. It's going to be in the ballparks of 80 minutes. So we're not doing a short film. We're going balls to the wall, good 80 minutes at least, and we're gonna have share a lot of the franchise. Give the fans a lot of nods, but keep it original to an extent. I mean, we can't be too original because it's not our character, but keep the story original, but also give fans a little wink here and there. And I think a lot of people are going to see certain things and be like, oh, they're doing that. Oh, that's a cool little callback. And I think people are going to really like it. And I think people are going to love the fact that Pamela's back. And I think Pamela's returned a couple times in other fan films, Never Hike in the Snow and Voorhees, and I think Jason Rising. But this is going to be a little different. I think it's going to be a little different. I think you've heard the Pamela's voice, and she definitely, our voice actress is amazing, dude. Like, her voice is just off the wall. When we did our table read back in, I think it was August, everyone heard her voice for the first time, and everyone just stopped. And like they had to pick their head up and just look like, what just happened? Like it was a magical moment.
That's so cool, man. And that gets me even more excited for what's to come. Well, that is in the future. But for right now, I want to go back to the past. And I want to talk about the first horror movie you ever watched. What got you and the ball rolling for you in the genre, my friend? So your first horror movie was?
I believe, if I remember correctly, and this is at a very, very young age, it would have been A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2, Freddy's Revenge. I love Freddy's Revenge, dude. Like, even today, I think it's probably my second favorite of the entire franchise. And I'm wondering if maybe watching that at such a young age is why it's like so. Why I'm so like why I gravitate towards it so much. I remember being probably a good 4 years old. I mean, and then my dad and my mother, they had a friend named Stan, and Stan had this big Freddy Krueger tattoo on his arm, and he had all the movies on VHS, or at least a majority of them at the time, and that's how I kind of came out of my bedroom and saw Freddy's Revenge on the TV, and that was kind of like my introduction to the genre.
And see, for me, Freddy's Revenge, I don't hate it. I don't love it. I actually just did a Nightmare on Elm Street franchise ranking, and it was right in the middle. I don't have a lot of good to say about it. I don't have a lot of bad to say about it. The two things I always argue about this movie: one, the poolside massacre is the most legit scene in any Freddy movie. You're all my children now. I love that. But I also defend the fact that people are like, oh, that movie's gay. And it's like, dude, every single slasher movie has an hour and a half's worth of titties. You can't handle one film with man ass in it. Like, man ass really bothers you that bad. I think that speaks more to your character than the character of the film, So, we're talking about Freddy's Revenge. For those who don't know, Nightmare on Elm Street 2 is Freddy's Revenge. Which scene from Freddy's Revenge affected you the most?
The moment where Jesse goes into Grady's room, and he and then he's like, he goes to sleep, and all of a sudden he wakes up. He's like, "It's happening again," or he says something like that. And he puts his hand out, and you see the claws coming through the fingertips, and you see the eyeball through the mouth, and everything. And then you see a head pushed through his stomach, and you see the reaction from Grady, and he's just like, "What in the F is going on right now?" Yeah, he's, Mom, Dad, he's like freaking out, dude. I love that part. It's so effective. And the moment that the hand comes out and just cuts the stomach wide open, and then Freddy actually comes out, and you see Grady's face, it becomes like, oh man, it was a nightmare. It was amazing. But also the poolside scene is really great too. When when the water's boiling and the people are getting out because it's hot, and all of a sudden he jumps from the ground and he starts slashing people. And I love the part where the guy's trying to talk him down. He's like, "It's okay, we can help you," or something. And he's like, "Help yourself," And I'm not gonna say it, but
man.
And that's a great scene too.
It's funny because A Nightmare on Elm Street 2 has the biggest body count of any Nightmare on Elm Street movie. I don't count Freddy and Jason in that because that's both a Nightmare and Friday movie. Right. But Freddy's never been known for big body counts. He's always been a quality over quantity guy. And where me and you are the same in a way that I really gravitate more towards Nightmare on Elm Street 4, The Dream Master, which a lot of people are not a fan of, but that's a nostalgic pick for me because I grew up with that film. That's the film, a Nightmare on Elm Street film that I watched the most growing up. So I really do have a soft spot for that film the way you do with Freddy's Revenge. And we see the forest through the trees when it comes to these films. We really, because it affected us so much as kids, we have that whatever it's called, the microscope.
Yeah. I know what you're talking about. I'm trying to think of the word myself.
Yeah, we see it through a rose-colored microscope just because of what it meant to us as kids. And when you think about
nostalgia.
when you think about Freddy's Revenge, what is the first thing that pops into your head?
The opening, actually, the moment where you see Jesse for the first time, and he looks like he's just kind of sweating, kind of or greasy, kind of just weird, and just like the weird kid on the bus, and then you see the girls up front, they're laughing at him because he's trying to open the window and he can't open the window, and it's like it's depressing. And then the girl's like, the bus keeps going, the girl's like, hey, that's my stop. Hey, that's my stop. And all of a sudden you get out from like this neighborhood to like out in the desert, and then you see like the Freddy glove shifting gears, and I love that scene when they're kind of like teeter-tottering on like the piece of I don't know what it is, whatever it is, and then the lightning strikes, and you see Freddy in there, and he's just laughing, and that was effective too. That was a really good scene.
Well, I think besides Robert Englund's portrayal as the demon in Wes Craven's New Nightmare, I think this was the darkest Freddy Krueger. I think this was darker than A Nightmare on Elm Street. And obviously after this, you got the Dream Warriors, which really became more of the one-liner Freddy.
Yeah.
And that is one thing about this movie that I do respect, is the fact that it was still really dark. But to me, again, I grew up with a Dream Master as the one I watched the most. So one-liner Freddy is something that I've always been a bigger fan of. Right. Now, a couple of questions I asked that when I talk about A Nightmare on Elm Street, I always ask, we talk about how part 2 was your first. What is your favorite in the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise?
Probably the original, and that's probably like very cliche of me to say. But if I were not to choose the original, because it is often revered as the best film of the franchise, not to everyone, but to a majority. But if I weren't to pick the second one or the first one, it would be Wes Craven's New Nightmare.
I love Wes Craven's New Nightmare. I love it.
So good.
So good. But see, I'm with you. I always pick the first one, not because it's the original, but because if you take out the last 3.5 minutes of A Nightmare on Elm Street, it's the perfect film. It is not only the perfect horror movie, but the perfect film. The practical effects, the kills, the characters, Freddy's in that movie for 7 minutes in the first Nightmare on Elm Street. And that's the effect he has on you. Robert Englund is that good that in 7 minutes, he built what we have now. And I completely agree with you that I do love it. And I think Wes Craven's New Nightmare is completely underrated. If we didn't have Wes Craven's New Nightmare, I don't think he would have wrote Scream. And if Wes Craven would not have written Scream, we would not have horror as we know it today. Scream completely revitalized the horror genre. For Scream, Absolutely. Even though I'm an older dude, Scream is my favorite horror franchise. I think that without Scream, horror right now would have been, just if look at when we are done talking, look at the horror movies that came out the 2 years before Scream and the 3 years after, and just look at what happened in the horror world after Scream. And Wes Craven is a genius. And that started with Wes Craven's New Nightmare being meta, Freddy out there in the talk show, you're all my children now, and having fun with it. So, and now one more Nightmare on Elm Street related question. Your opinion on the remake?
I feel like a majority of the cast didn't care that they were there. They were there just to collect a paycheck. They didn't really dive into their characters. The actress who played Nancy, I don't remember, is it Rooney Mara? I think
she didn't give a shit.
Yeah, she didn't care. I thought Jackie Earle Haley was cool, but the thing is, he's really short, and you can tell, you can see that he's like what, 5'5", 5'6". He's a short guy, and when you see him, Robert's not tall himself, but the way he's shot is that he's larger than life. They do it at a certain angle where he just appears to fill up the screen, and they didn't do that with Jackie. And I don't know if that's a majority of the fact that they put like that green screen stuff on his face because it was not practical effects. At least some of it was or was not. And then so overall the tone was nice. I do like how they dived into how Freddy got burned and the parents chased him. I love that. That's cool. But overall the story, it was not for me. I mean,
and I'm with you in the fact that I just did, like I said, I did my franchise ranking, and that wasn't last. I actually put Dream Child below that. But to me, it's like positives and negatives of the movie were Jackie Earle Haley. The positives was him as the actor he is, and the negative is you can only do so much with the script you're given. And Freddy Krueger was never a child molester. He was a child killer. And I'm not saying a killer's better. Please don't think that. But to completely change a character that we all know from something to another, that really bothered me. And the fact that they tried to play him off as innocent throughout the first 2 acts, that's fine if this is an original movie. But this is a remake of Nightmare on Elm Street. We know he's not innocent. So to try to throw that curveball in there, but I do agree with you. I like the backstory because it reminded me of the Nightmare on Elm Street TV show, the short-lived TV show. They had a whole episode about that when I was a kid. And then I like the micro-naps. I thought the micro-naps was super cool. And I thought the kills were brutal as shit in this movie. Like the guy that put the knife to his own neck. Like I thought that was great. But
that's great.
We've talked about your first horror movie. We've talked about some other movies in the Nightmare on Elm Street. Now I do want to go full scream on you here. What's your favorite scary movie?
Ooh.
What is your favorite horror movie of all time?
It's going to be John Carpenter's Halloween. It's
nice.
It's actually probably the biggest film for me that's impacted my life and my taste in cinema in general. It's like, don't get me wrong, there's films like The Crow and The Thing and Scream, Nightmare on Elm Street, there's so many films, The Psycho, you can go back in Jaws, whatever it may be. But something about John Carpenter's Halloween it's just something so scary, and it's weird because it's kind of plain. It is, but like, not only does Michael himself tell a story, but you can see the story through not only the words of Dr. Loomis, but his eyes and his expressions. And
these are the devil's eyes.
Yeah, and I love me some Donald Pleasance, man. So like, Halloween.
See, and I have this weird fucking relationship with Halloween, man. Like growing up, I hated the Halloween franchise growing up. I hated it. I was like, Michael Myers is boring as shit. He's white bread. He's stabby, stabby, stabby. Plain. And he is. He really is. But now that I'm an adult, I look at that in a different way. I don't look at him as boring now. I look at him as realistic. And of the big 3, Freddy, Michael, Jason, Michael is probably the scariest just because there's that. When Jason gets his mask ripped off, you see a monster. When you look at Freddy, you see a monster. In John Carpenter's Halloween, when his mask comes off, you see a man.
Yeah.
And that makes it so much scarier knowing that this is just another guy. This isn't a monster. This isn't a guy in your dreams. This is the guy down the street that's hunting a babysitter, and he's just an evil sumbitch. Like that's it, period. Point blank, period. He's evil. And with John Carpenter's Halloween, John Carpenter nailed it with the score. I mean, people know the Halloween theme, even if they've never seen the movie.
Yeah.
People know this, even if they've never seen the movie.
Yeah.
Like I feel the same way about, all the big 3. People know this, the glove. People know when they see a hockey mask, nobody thinks of hockey. They think of Jason. So it's just like, I completely agree with you in the big 3 and their effect. The holy trinity, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost of horror to me is Michael Myers, Freddy Krueger, Jason Voorhees. Yeah. And I'm glad that the older I've gotten, the more I've gotten to appreciate the Halloween franchise. It's one that it's taken a couple weird movies in the mix, but one of my all-time favorite horror movies, top 5, is actually Halloween 3, Season of the Witch. I think it's a brilliant movie. So I always end these, my friends, with a skull count. We're going back to Freddy's Revenge. We're rating it on overall quality and production of the film and how it affected you. 0 skulls being the worst, 5 being the best. What would your ranking be on A Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Freddy's Revenge?
If I were to be, even though I love the film, if I were to be an honest critic right now, it would probably be like a 3.75 for me, 3.5, just because there are like, I like the gay tones. It doesn't bother me, it doesn't affect me, but there's that scene where they're like Jesse's in it's after hours and him and the coach are in there and he's running laps and the dude gets his ass
the coach still has on the leather garb.
Yeah. Like, what is that? But then there's moments where like Jesse, sees Freddy for the first time and he's like, you got the body and I've got the brain. And he starts pulling away and he's laughing at him while Jesse's screaming. There's things like that that's really cool. But then there's just some moments. I thought the ending was really lackluster. I didn't feel like it did anything for me. Like the moment like he's like Freddy's up against the pipes, and the pipes starts taking his skin off, and he reveals Jesse underneath. I just thought that was really uneventful and not that great. So
that's honestly the worst thing about the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. If you look, there is not one Nightmare on Elm Street in the whole franchise, with the exception of the remake, that has a good ending. Right. Every Nightmare on Elm Street, I mean, Freddy, and even the Dream Warriors, which I hear is one of the best movies of all time. Freddy dies in that movie at the end. Dream Master, he dies from getting, looking in the mirror. Dream Warriors, he dies because they throw holy water on his bones. I mean, like, there's never been a good ending to a Freddy movie to me, except for in the remake when, he comes through the mirror and gets the mom with the glove and brings her back into the mirror. I thought that was an awesome ending. It didn't look the best with the CGI, but it looked way better than the blow-up doll coming back through the door in A Nightmare on Elm Street.
That's the worst. That's the worst. I do like Wes Craven's New Nightmares ending, though. I thought that was a really good ending.
Ah, man.
But it's weird because is it a Freddy? I mean, it's a Freddy film, but it's like it's not really Freddy we're watching.
See, and I think the reason that the reason the ending bothered me in Wes Craven's New Nightmare is because it's not Freddy Krueger. For those of you that haven't seen it, spoiler alert. It's more meta. It takes place in real life, but there's a demon Freddy that's out there. It's a dream demon, and he takes the form of Freddy Krueger, but he's way scary. He has a trench coat, a different color. It's like more faded, but he dies from getting put in an oven, like in Hansel and Gretel. And you're going to tell me that a dream demon is going to get killed by fire? Like, it's just, maybe I'm overlooking, I'm reading too much into it,
That's a good point.
Like, oh man, you hear about Aquaman? He drowned in the bathtub, bro. It didn't make a lot of sense.
In water. I didn't even think about that.
That's the one thing for New Nightmare that bothered me, but Nightmare on Elm Street alone, without a Nightmare on Elm Street, there's very little that we still have to this day when it comes to the influence. Can't be understated in A Nightmare on Elm Street. And without it, I wouldn't be the same person I am. And I'm quite certain you wouldn't be either, my friend. So don't go anywhere. I got a couple more questions for you and a couple offers for you as well. Sure. Everybody else, remember, check these links down here in the description. These guys are all working their asses off, and they're not doing it for a paycheck. They're doing it for their love of the franchises and their love of the film. So make sure you're checking them out. Keep talking horror. Stay what you are, and we'll see you guys soon.